Hey there. This is part 2 of the tattoo episode. I haven't even gotten to talk about the tattoos yet, but it's so funny how, again, this is just another case, this divided video of how technology influences and warps the message. I didn't have enough space on the recording device, or there was some other technological issue. And so coincidentally, I kind of had to cut short the last video. Now, of course, I'm picking it up in the second video, but again, now I've had to explain that in the first 35 seconds of this video, so we've had to use more time, and technology has actually interrupted what we're trying to do. And this is, you might say, well, that's not a big deal, it's just 30 seconds. However, there are millions of interruptions just like this, just like we talked about in the first part of this episode about how the fake news really, in essence, drags every manner of trivia, as long as it's recent, is really the only qualification for fake news. It drags every bit of trivia electronically from every corner of the globe and attempts to juxtapose it quite awkwardly by any real human standards in your mind, or in whatever block. They have 30 minutes if it's a 30-minute news hit. And that's they're all news hits. And that's why someone out there has a habit of calling them the drive-by media, because they really assault your mind and scar it and move on, and you don't remember half of what they tell you afterward. And if that's not drug-like, I don't know what is. But enough about the general theorizing and tangents, because again, our purpose is to. When I began this, I really just wanted to talk about how tattoos and rings are, what's appropriate for tattoos and rings, and that sort of thing, body markings of any kind, body piercings of any kind, based on the wisdom of a better generation. Because the fact is, in the same way that you have been deprived of the ability to develop your own musical taste because you've been so distracted by the gyrating Elvises and the Shakira, Anyway, it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's just so funny to me sometimes that this stuff, people say, oh, that's really good music. It's got a good beat. Well, it's the same beat. It's the same rhythm from fake song to fake song. Oh, and a very important point: most of these pop, so-called pop songs, which aren't really popular at all. Again, it's just those the whores or man whores, for to be consistent, who are singing these jingles. Jingles is what they are. They're annoying little ditties with no inventiveness to them, but however they repeat them so much that they get stuck in your head, and we in our collective societal modern ignorance, our fake news induced ignorance, our media culture induced drugged influence, under the influence of media programming, we call it music, but it's really just jingles for that particular gyrating artist. It's like, oh, was that the jingle for this fast food restaurant? I forget. Was that the jingle for that one? And that's the thing, when you forget, it's like, oh, is that Hedy Lamarr? Is that Britney Spears? I don't even know anymore. It all just kind of goes together, and ultimately nobody remembers any of them because they never did anything musically worth remembering. At least the Beatles, they couldn't sing, they couldn't compose, but they had a good producer who could compose some degrees of fusion. And again, I credit them for that, and I credit them for their evil, ability to use media, but they used it for a very bad purpose, which was to sell a lot of records, and at what cost? Well, we're living it right now. Anyone who claims to be more popular than Jesus Christ is probably not a very nice person. But again, this is about tats and body piercing. So what's a good number of tats to have? What's a good number of tattoos to have? What's a good number of body piercings to have? Okay, well, if you're a man, it's very simple. 0 on both counts. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. Well, who are you to judge me or whatnot? Listen, you don't have to listen to any of this. But I'll tell you the truth is that if you don't listen, you're going to be deprived of my wisdom. And there are a lot of people who do know this, whom you're not going to have access to, because they're going to take one look at you and they're going to say, "Who is this clown?" And you're more likely to, and this is why you're more likely to get a better job if you don't have tattoos. Now, in recency, millennials will say, "Oh, all those people are dying off who care about that." First of all, I'm a millennial and I care because I care, first of all, I care about my country, and I know that if you're in such a state of either drug induced, fake news induced, or maybe you're just maybe you're so stressed out that you need to have that high in your life, that you need the physical pain of getting a piercing, or for some reason you're trying to cling to some memory that for some reason you're obsessed with in an unnatural way, so you have to get that tattoo because you're afraid of being separated from that one good thing that you think you had and you think you're never going to be able to get the equivalent of again. And first of all, it's a very unhealthy way of thinking, but that's why people get tattoos. That's why people and the ring thing can be a little more complicated, but not really. Not really. If you're a man who fought in a war and you got some bullet holes in you, you've probably had your fill of bullet holes. And again, I'm not speaking for veterans, whom I admire and thank for your service, by the way. But it's really it's usually 99 times out of 100, it's those people who are seeking thrills in all the wrong places because, again, they don't have the greatest drug of all, the drug that I'm on, which is the high of life, which comes from doing nice things for your fellow Americans and making a real difference, which is what I'm here to help you do, by the way. I am one man, but America is a nation of millions and millions of brilliant men, even if you don't know it yet. And you know what? Most of them are right here watching AmericasMansman.com, because you folks know you stumbled upon a treasure trove of wisdom. And by the way, I thank you so much for investing your time in this and bearing with me this morning as we all awaken together this morning. It's morning in America, right? So Ronald Reagan balanced the budget, though. That's one thing no one's ever tried to do since then. Now we have such a quagmire of overextended federal government, but we got to start hacking. We're gonna chip it away. I think President Trump has done a fine job of doing everything that he's done. I mean, half of his job has just been cleaning up the messes of Barack, and there are a lot of other messes that have to be cleaned up that Jimmy Carter created. The Department of Education. There's just so much, and it's all got to go because it's not the federal government's job, and it just hurts everybody. Did I say don't marry someone outside your race? You may not want to. Okay, we'll pleasantly suggest. Just it's for your own good. All of this is for your own good, and the same for the tat thing. Did you know? I tried to tell someone I care about. And that's the thing, is that you learn this stuff, and sometimes here's another tip of advice. It took me a while to figure out. Is that once you obtain this wisdom that you're getting now, should you start sharing it with other people? Now, if I were selfish, if I wanted, if I wanted to get lots of views very quickly, I'd simply tell you, well, yeah, go out and share this with everybody that you know. And that's actually, that's kind of what, that's what many people have done, in this field that I'm in. If it can be defined, I don't really think there's anything like America's Man's Man, but there is a history. I do look to people, and I recommended them to you, like President Trump's family, spiritual advisor de facto, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, no longer in this world, but he left recordings of his wisdom, and I, which is what I'm doing here, and there's kind of a tradition of sharing the old story, be it the Great Revival preachers. I'm trying to think of that one who said, blame the pulpit if a nation is crumbling. Charles Finney, Reverend Charles Finney. So there's precedent, and there's nothing original. There's nothing. This is not the gospel of Peter Vidala. This is the gospel of America and the gospel of Jesus Christ, which are one and the same when you actually get down to it. Now, of course, because as I began the episode, the fake news, which is where everybody in the 20th century majority has gotten their miseducation, their indoctrination from. Fake news has been censoring God from the story. So for me to say that Jesus Christ is the center of America, what do they say? Well, they repeat weird anachronisms like separation of church and state, separation of church and state. It's in the Constitution, and it's not in the Constitution. Talk to Jay Sekulow, President Trump's advisor. I did. Anyway, so you have, and this is, because... man, I'll tell you. But this is why you think the way that you do, and this is why not just you, but your parents too. So when I'm talking about tattoos and body piercings, which is what where I began this topic, intended to begin this topic, but we've had a pleasant conversation, haven't we? When I talk about tattoos and body piercings, I'm not just talking about how you've been directly influenced by fake news media and other fake news types of sources. They all brainwash you, and none of it's, when you realize that none of it's actually news, none of it's information. You need to know none of it, and all of it is loosely based on the real world at the very best. The distinctions between the tabloids and the sitcoms and the Netflix pornography all become more blurry because that's how much of a lie it really is. But again, the chief thing that in terms of the facts, that the fake news reports, their chief sin of omission throughout all of this, and which they continue to do at ABC, CBS, and CNN, PMSNBC, and the rest, they omit God from the story. And they omit God from the story, first of all, because their primary audience is people who don't know any better. Like the Super Bowl, they're going for that low information person who has time to waste sitting through commercials, and it's not even it's not even a commercial. I mean, just the so-called content, that's really the right word for it, because that's what it is. It's content. It's all the same. It's it's like milk in a bottle or whatever you buy at the grocery store. It's all the same. It's all the same. Now follow, Rob Chalice's music at Paradigm. It's all the same. It's all how much skin can you get away with revealing? How provocatively can you gyrate your hips? Oh, she's really sexy, or whatever. It's kind of weird how ugly most of the cheerleaders were. I guess it's just our whole standards of everything. At least once upon a time, there were like sexy models. That at least they were used to at least try to get people to pay attention to media. Now they just put ugly. I don't know. It's all, I don't know. Television, media. It messes with your mind. In a lot of ways. In a lot of ways that I'm probably not even aware of as I hope to bring this to you. But we're all on this journey together, and who knows? Maybe you'll think of the next big thing, and you'll respond in the comments on americasmansman.com, and maybe you'll point out another angle to this that even America's Man's Man hasn't yet been able to diagnose. And by the way, America's Man's Man episodes are not intended to treat or diagnose any disease or condition. Except maybe on a macro-cultural scale. But, I guess the main idea is to please the lawyers with that statement. which is an incredibly difficult job to do. Many lawyers are very skittish. You notice that they're so focused on, they have that, they have to be obsessive, because the bad lawyers have to be obsessive. Not good lawyers, but the bad lawyers, the ones who don't care that much, if they don't end up in the corporate realm, or one of those kind of paperwork lawyer types of things, they're very, they're calculating, but they're bad at it. They're bad at calculating. Anyway, we'll go into that in some other time. But tattoos and body piercings, men, don't do it. Okay, simple, straight and simple. Don't do it. Just trust me on this one. Women, here's what's acceptable. America's man's man and America's man's men don't consider you a total freak. If you're a woman, just one here in the earlobe, one here in the earlobe, middle of the earlobe, one here, and not some outrageous thing that's screaming for attention, because that's what you're trying to avoid. You want it to be subtle. You want it to be, if it's a diamond, wonderful, but keep it keep it classy, keep it elegant, but small, because you don't want some, especially if again, if you have lovely lovely kind of milky complexion, you don't need something even shiny or screaming out, look at me, because if gentlemen do prefer blondes, it's only because it makes you easier for us to find in a crowd and take care of and protect. So yeah, just ladies, just a little stud here, a little stud here. I don't think much more needs to be said about that. I've seen everything, and I know, in terms of your job potential, in terms of dollars and cents. Yeah, I mean, there are millennials out there that will hire you. I've noticed that places like, I was at a Panera yesterday, and I'm sorry, I am just so, they're lowering their standards. Panera used to be like the conservative Starbucks. It used to be like it's like, oh, okay, they're not going to dress freakishly over there. The coffee's going downhill, the Wi-Fi is going downhill. And it wastes your time if you're trying to do things productive. If you're trying to be productive over there, you won't, because the coffee's it's awful. Maybe I just prefer to a mellower kind of coffee. I don't like the kind of biting, kill a horse strong flavor type of even in the dark roast. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work, and it tastes like, it's awful. It's just the whole experience there. But I don't know, I saw this one of the Paneras, there was a girl who she's wearing a tattoo of the, I said, geez, what's that ghastly tattoo on your arm? Whole arm is filled with bloody ink. She looks like, I don't know, I thought she had some kind of skin problem. But no, she intentionally scarred her skin with this whatever, and she said, "Oh, that's the Reaper." So that makes me feel all good inside. That makes me feel all warm and fuzzy, and but just no. Okay, so no tattoos. No tattoos. Tattoos came from regions of the globe other than Christian, in touch with self types of places. Communist China, that's where this kind of thing is. I don't know. I'll tell you. No. I take it back. No, in Asia, rightfully. No, I have to give Japan and China credit. Mostly Japan, because China is basically a shit show at this point. Excuse my language, ladies. I do apologize. Men, I do apologize. Gentlemen shouldn't use profanity, right? Anyway, in China. In Japan, they actually care. I would venture to say that Japan is outdoing us in family values. I was at a fast food restaurant a couple days ago, and by the way, don't go to fast food restaurants if you can avoid them. I have a process of detoxifying my fast food when I go there. It's you don't want to know, honestly, because it's just anyway. But there's this thing they show all these stupid feeds and whatever. It's just basically a bunch of puppy dog videos and that sort of every manner of girl YouTube porn, soft. It's just pictures of babies laughing and but a million of them, one after the other, and this is what they do. This is just one of their shticks. They have one of their. And there was an Asian family. Most people look at it as like, oh, this is just why are you putting a Twitter feed on the wall? Twat, by the way. Yeah, I can only give them credit. Twat. Ugh, yuck, Twitter. But there's there's an Asian family that walks in. I think it's a Japanese family. There's and of course they walk in, and the kids they have like 5 kids. They all look up at the screen. They're like, and then they all start laughing. Like, I don't know. They just because chances are at least their parents know better than to give them this device which programs them, and maybe they know this better than anyone because they're the ones manufacturing all this in Japan or China or wherever they make these things. You ever wonder what would happen if if Apple stopped outsourcing all of our American work to China to do? How much the worst economy in the world, California, could become the best economy in the world if only they took all those millions of jobs back from China, where they're building all of Apple's stuff over there overseas. But anyway, in terms of tattoos, so in terms of the adding more and more until you're freakishly. I mean, again, because I know some of you are thinking, well, nobody cares. Sure, they'll hire me even though I have a nose ring. Well, I don't know. You'll notice as you go up the chain, and you might say it's just legacy. You might say, well, that's the way it always does, and we're just waiting on the world to change. Another one of those hipster. It's like, who's saying that? Who's saying it? It's just because it's so stupid. It's so stupid. It takes an America's man's man to make the world change, and we don't. We make not only our own luck, but luck doesn't exist. We make the world better for those around us. We do so because we made the decision that we wouldn't have life any other way. That's who we are. It's what we do. It's what makes us America's man's men. We listen to God, and we listen to His fingerprints deep within us, which whether you believe in God or not are there. And that's what drives this whole tattoo thing. It's not that I'm a religious or Christianese. It's not that I'm a legalistic person, but the more you realize about yourself, the more you realize that you don't really want a tattoo either. You don't really want a ring. You don't want rings in unsightly places. Frankly, I think that the earlobe is pushing it even on girls. There was a whole thing that the homosexuals started back in the I don't know, whenever, that there's like a gay ear or there's a homosexual ear, that if you, it's like you can, if you put, it's like he's cool because he's got the ring in the left ear, but if you put the ring in the right ear, he's a homosexual. Well, that's, it's neither here nor there. If you have an earring in either side and you're a dude, you're there's something not right. Okay, I'm gonna say you're on your way, but but we'll just leave it there. There's something not quite right. So but the deal with tats and earrings in general is that in terms of employment potential, earnings potential, I mean, no one's going to tell you this because they don't want to trigger you. They don't want you to go ballistic and be like, "You're not my father." Like this is what this girl was telling me yesterday. She looks like a guppy because she's got this stud like in here. I don't even care if she knows. We're cordial enough, and if she does care, I don't. So anyway, I do, but I really don't. it's like because the ring is here and it comes up over the mouth, she can't completely close her mouth, so she has to kind of be in this guppy kind of mode all the time, where she's just like, kind of like this. It's like a fish. But the thing is, again, I'm trying to help you folks. I am. I'm trying to help you, and I'm trying to help everyone. I'm not trying to judge you. I'm not trying to impose some harebrained scheme of what I think is right from the world, and if everybody just did this one thing, then everybody be happy. No, I don't think that way. I think America first. I think America first, because I know I can't save everybody, but I can help you to help others, and again, that's the best drug of all. It's the best drug of all. And of course, it's not a drug at all. It's what drugs mimic poorly. And of course, if you use drugs, you get into a very bad way. So but again, in terms of earning potential, with the ring, in terms of earning potential, people will say they'll hire you, but they really won't. Now there are exceptions. If you're there are places where you can get paid to be a freak. I actually bumped into. It's always nice to meet another person who works in media, because they have some sense of. Some of them have some semblance of woke. They're awakened. Woke is a very misleading oxymoron. So we're gonna. I know that's redundant too. So don't be on me about that. But you have to understand, this is all right off the bat. There's no teleprompter here. Anyway, I bumped into a roadie at the Kiss concert, and Kiss would be a good example of again, it's nothing original musically, but they, what do? They paint they paint a little star in their eye or something like that. It's kind of their trademark freak thing. If you want to be a freak, and if you want to be paid to be a freak, then that's that would be an exception to the rule. If you want to go to Los Angeles or whatnot, then you may be able to make a living for a time, in which you may not be your earning potential may not be impeded too much by having the guppy ring, or I see some of them, and the rings come they look like boogers. They just come in like oh gee, it's like at first glance, like, oh, you got something in your nose right there, but over the long term, it's going to hurt you, because once you get one as a means of crying out for attention, maybe you're in a workplace with other media suggestible millennials, and they all they don't. How do you differentiate yourself anymore? After all, it's a cry for attention, to distinguish yourself from the pack, because you can't think of it. This is what the people on TV do, because they're paid to do it. So you get another ring, and maybe you get 5 rings, and maybe suddenly you get 5 rings here. You got one here. And maybe you get 4 lip rings, and you can't close your mouth, and it's like a pocket full of change every time you try to talk. Not to mention that you get here, which is major insanity. I mean, it's just degrees of the same insanity. Look, just trust me on this one, guys. No tats, no rings. It's just stupid. Ladies, one here can be brilliantly expensive, as much, in terms of taste, whatever you can pack into the smallest, most minute space possible. If you have a I'd say if you have a super bright diamond, that would be the way to show off. But just that one here, earlobe, if you don't want to be considered a freak by men who know, by America's man's men, and by anyone who has any sense of connectedness to nature, to themselves, and to the God of America, Jesus Christ. This is America's Man's Man, americasmansman.com.